Mm. Can you hear me? Testing audio. I hope everybody can hear me. Hello? Can you hear me?
Hey, Michelle.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Hang on. I gotta adjust my screen here.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to see. Oh, now I see both of you. Okay, great. I'm still learning how to use the video functions. I'm a little new at it. So bear with me while I futz around with it a little bit. Allison, are you here too?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I just don't see a video of you. I just see your name.
Let me start video.
I see a camera image. I'm trying to
There I am.
trying to figure out how to move you guys so that I can have you in a row. Like I watched some of the other ones and people were stacked. I'm wondering what I'm doing differently. Would it be that? No, that's not it.
It might be we look stacked to me.
What? It looks
Maybe
stacked.
it's just from your
Okay. We're across the bottom. That'll work too. I can work with that.
All you do is just got to put your screen to where it covers your whole area.
This thing right here. Let's see.
You know your e-portfolio.
Oh, gotcha. Like that?
And up on top, it should say
I've got to manage participants.
fit screen or something.
Yeah. I'm not seeing that
Where
one.
where it says view options up on top.
View options. Am I missing that?
Way up on top, there's a little green thing that says it's.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I hadn't worked with more than one person. You know, this actually works. I kind of like it, actually, you guys all right there. That way I can get access to the side panel here. So I think I'll keep you guys at the bottom if you're all right with that. Does that work for you?
Yes.
I have my window open right now because it was a little warm in my office. My fan makes a very annoying clicking sound. So if it gets too noisy, I can close the window.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm looking for a pen and paper. I just checked into my hotel. I literally just walked into my hotel room. So give me 1 second.
Hi, Allison. It's nice to see your face.
Nice to see you, Michelle.
And hi, Christy. Nice to meet you, too.
Absolutely. Hi, Lene.
Hi. So before we get started, I have a really big question, Michelle.
Yes.
When I try to access your portfolio, once you've moved it, it says that I'm unauthorized.
Really?
Yeah. Is anyone else getting that error?
I did not get that. I was able to access it with the link that you sent me through the Canvas inbox, Michelle. So I accessed it yesterday.
Okay.
Just using that link, and it was okay.
Uh-huh.
Because there's two different links here, and I got that feedback from Jody as well, that one of the links worked and the other one didn't. When I tried them both this morning, they both worked. So I wasn't sure which one she was talking about.
Well, both of them are going to work for you no matter what. That's
Really?
that's the piece about logging, trying to check your own ePortfolio.
Okay.
Okay, the second link works.
Okay.
I actually have a really old Safari on my computer, and I don't ever update it.
Mhm.
And that's what I use to check whether or not someone can actually access something that's in a password protected site or something like an ePortfolio, because it's a really old version of Safari. So it's got, if a student is going to have a problem, it's because they have not updated software, right? And then there's no cookies or anything like that that's going to interfere with my using the link. And so every time I think to myself, I'm just going to get rid of that Safari or update it, I think, no, keep it. So you might always try checking if you're trying to make something open to people, check it someplace where there's not a cookie that says that it's you.
Okay.
Otherwise, you might find that you lock someone out.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that's good advice.
Yeah, so the second link worked perfectly.
Okay, so yeah, I knew it was one of them, and I didn't want to eliminate the one that didn't work, so I just erred on the side of caution of leaving them both. So I'm glad you found me and found my portfolio.
So I don't think we have to wait for anyone else. The entire At One team is going to be here for tomorrow's workshop, and so they're all at various stages of on the road
Okay.
right now. So you can start when you're ready. Just a few things to remind you. I mean, you're already set up and going in Zoom, so I don't think I have to remind you of anything. But watch your time a little bit so that we have time for Q&A, and you don't have to worry about hitting every single point. Hit the high notes, and we look forward to watching your portfolio. We'll have questions at the end. I mean, do we have an order we want to go in? Christy, then Allison, then me. Allison, Christy, then me. Anybody? Preferences?
Everything's fine.
Okay, I'll back clean up. I'll go last.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll mute ourselves. There seems to be a lot of airplane noise where I am right here. It is close to the airport. So I'll mute myself, and other people might need to do that too.
Sure.
Just a quick question before you guys mute is I have my window open just to let a little air through here. How's the, my volume? Are you able to hear me okay?
You're good.
Excellent. Yeah, I just got a new webcam, so today I'm starting that. So I'm hoping that it's going to work fine for us. I practiced all day, so I'm hoping that this is going to work great.
It looks great.
Oh, good. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so should I get started? All right, so basically just to kind of start this presentation, I'll just want to let you know a little bit about myself and my background. I have my welcome screen here. My clinical experience, or actually my teaching experience, is quite extensive. I actually have been teaching full-time for Saddleback College for 20 years. And so I've done just a myriad of classes you can imagine in the last 20 years. And most of them obviously being in seat. I've done workshop style, a lot of lecture, clinical. I'm nursing faculty full-time for Saddleback College. And so my biggest challenge with this was taking what I'm used to doing and seeing what works well online and what doesn't work well. So I've been teaching the N161 growth and development class online for several years, and I've been interested in doing online teaching for quite a few years. And I have an older sister who has a doctorate in communications. She teaches online, and so I'm like, well, let's just give this a try. So I started the At One classes last summer and have been working on sort of getting this class going. And I finally got an opportunity to teach it online for the first time this past spring. And we're actually in finals week right now, so I'm still, figuring out sort of the end part of it. But I've really enjoyed the switch. After 20 years of doing something the same old way, it's just really nice to do something fresh, something new, try new technologies. And I have to say that all of the At One classes that I've had have been a huge support in teaching me things and showing me things and introducing me to technologies that I had always wanted to try but was a little leery of. So just kind of like anybody who's been doing something a long time, just sort of switching over and bringing the best of what I have to offer students from my in-seat classes to my online presence. And that's been a really fun process and a very interesting process. And I have to say that I actually find, surprisingly, that I'm more connected to this group of students than when I sit in a classroom and just sort of spiel out to them and try to get people to participate, because you always get the people in the front row that are very engaged, and then you get the people in the back that you're trying to bring along for the ride. Whereas in the online teaching, everybody has to participate, everybody has to do the work, everybody has to be a part of this. And the discussion boards are very dynamic, and my email process, all of that seems to really kind of be a great opportunity to get to know the students in a totally different way. So that's a little bit about me. This is just a little bit of reiteration of that. I'll kind of jump right into the standards to keep things moving along. The first standard is student success. And let's see here, if I can just kind of roll this up a little bit. This is, to me, like when I looked at these standards, I thought, you know, like how can I use these standards and what I've learned in the classes to help me really start from the ground and really build a class that makes sense and do it in a meaningful way that really follows what @ONE has sort of set up as is the way to do it. So I started with this one thinking about, you know, what do I do to get the class in a position that it is easy to navigate, that students understand what's going on, and the students are basically what I would call ready to learn. And what I quickly found out in my first opportunity to teach is that the highest risk students are the ones who have a slow start, and they're the ones who get behind before they even get started, and then that's the problem. And so really helping students figure out how to get online. Linnea, your suggestion about testing in different browsers, testing, I have a very old iPad. I just thought of that when you were saying that. I have like probably the original iPad, that might be a good one to try and see, you know, if this, what that stuff looks like in that forum of, you know, older technology versus the newest and greatest. Right now I'm sitting in front of dual 27-inch screens and I'm about blasted out by color and light, and what does that look like compared to when I see it on a little tiny iPad screen or an iPad mini, or even I have a cell phone, I have my little iPhone that I can, you know, see, well, what does it look like on those? So with the technical skills, taking a look at that. My barriers that I identified, that's kind of what I saw the standard about, is to look at what are the barriers, and then what can I as a professor do to help my students overcome their barriers, or even anticipate those barriers to kind of set them up for success. So right away, interestingly enough, these are the same barriers I have to my in-seat and my clinical. Not knowing how to do things, not being able to communicate well with the faculty, missing deadlines, and being disorganized. Those first three are really universal to all teaching. You just have a slightly different twist on it when they are online. The technical skills sort of take on a life of their own in an online class. However, one of the things that sort of kind of ramped me up into teaching online is that for years, we've had Blackboard as sort of a platform for every class. And so a lot of the classes, we use Blackboard to house the slides, to do announcements. And then in my clinical classes, what I started doing is allowing students to, or encouraging students to submit all their assignments online so that I can grade and provide feedback. So I've had several years of experience with using Blackboard for a lot of different features such as that. So just helping students learn how to do those things. How do you submit an assignment, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll get into that a little bit more in standard 2. So standard 1 to me is all about that. Taking a look at my artifacts for this one, this first artifact really has to do with my orientation. What I did, and Allison, if you looked at this, you may notice there's a whole lot more. I've been populating all day and yesterday. I've been doing screenshots of my class itself. Since I teach a growth and development class, it's a lot about kids, so I try to keep it bright, keep it sort of engaging, very colorful.
Sorry to interrupt, but I can't see your screen.
Oh, you can't see my screen. Okay, let's see here.
Thank you, Allison. I was just getting ready to ask if it was a problem with me or, so it looks like you may have shared a specific screen. And what you want to do probably is share your desktop so that you can move back and forth between things.
Okay, and maybe you could help me with that, because I thought that's what I was doing.
If you stop sharing for just a second,
okay,
so that you can,
okay,
and then go ahead and start sharing again.
Your screen, okay.
And then when you were given the choices, I always choose share everything.
Okay, and given
the big joke is that I'm an oversharer, and it prevents someone not being able to follow you.
So, you know, when I'm here, sorry with the technical difficulties here, because I thought that's what I was doing, because it seemed like that's what I was doing. Now, can you see it?
So we see your portfolio, and it's still on the introduction.
Okay, now what am I doing wrong here? So sorry about that. Okay, so new share, and then I just go to this one here. Desktop 1, or because it says select a window that I need to share. So I thought I did that.
And which window is your portfolio in?
I believe it's desktop 1. Let me try desktop 2. Let's just see if that's it. Okay, now are you guys seeing my ePort, let's see, I'm looking at my syllabus, my first artifact. Are you seeing that?
That's what we're seeing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay, I just switched from 2 to 1, so I think that's where I got messed up. So thank you for that. And sorry, I'm slowing me down here. I guess I'll catch up time here. Okay, basically this is my orientation. This is just a picture of what the students see to help them get started. I have my welcome letter here, my bio, strategies for success, and then my technical resources, which I'll get a little bit more into with standard 2. And then again, my artifacts, I'm not going to go through each and every one, but this is just my little welcome message. Let's see here. Oh yeah, and so Allison there, you had asked me for my picture, my family, just a little bit of personal, that I'm showing a little bit about me and who I am, and you know, a little bit about myself. I tend to share a lot of stories, especially for growth and development. I think it really helps the students to kind of feel like they're a part of, you know, they understand who you are by telling your stories. And I find that stories are a great way to illustrate. So I'm kind of using more video, more picture, more words to tell stories in this class. So the course orientation is this is sort of a reiteration of what's in my welcome package, but I find sometimes students get overwhelmed with too much information. So what I did on this one is, this is kind of something I give to them right away. And it's just like a little quick thing. And if you can see, it kind of really overcomes those barriers we talked about with time commitment, with scheduling, work environment, and assistance. And interestingly, even before I got to do my portfolio, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, my welcome letter pretty much addresses standard 1. So that's cool. The other thing that I put in this little artifact list is my syllabus sections. Just my strategy for this portfolio was to, instead of giving you my whole syllabus, is just to cut and paste pieces of my syllabus related to that standard. So this one here is just what I felt were selected parts of my syllabus that are about student success, everything from academic honesty to dates, and then some of the stuff you'll see again. I try not to repeat, but sometimes it's really hard with these standards to keep it pure. So you may see a little bit here and there. So that is standard 1. Moving on to standard 2, I'm just trying to keep my eye on my time here. This is the technology one. I've talked a little bit about that, you know, for years I've been using Blackboard as an adjunct for both lecture and clinical. I've used the gradebook quite a bit. I've used the PowerPoints. I've used discussion boards. And those are all working very well. So I've got a little description of how and what I used. And then some cool things that I found that I really like a lot that I put into my class is this first artifact. There's a whole bunch of how-to videos that I found on YouTube that help students kind of learn how to do different things in Blackboard, from, you know, doing a discussion, checking grades, submitting an assignment. So a lot of these are things that I require them to do. So in addition to giving them verbal, I also have access to these videos. And then I just found out that our college is going to be switching to Canvas, so we'll all be learning together how to do all of this again. But that's good. This again is just sort of, again, to follow my theme. These are my pieces of my syllabus that relate to the technology and how to use that. You'll see over and over again, I've got my due dates, because, you know, it seems to me that due dates is one of the biggest issues is students keeping up. So any opportunity I have, I try to throw in due dates. You may notice I use military time quite a bit, and that is because, first of all, we use military time in nursing. And also, when you say Wednesday at midnight, what day is that? So we use the military 2359 as a way to indicate that's like Wednesday at midnight. So that just sort of helps clarify which midnight we're talking about. Moving on to the next tab, which I think this is probably one of the more important ones, is our college has a wonderful set of resources for both faculty and students to help them with just the whole technical piece. What I've done here is just done a screenshot of the website for the colleges. They have a whole online class section. And inside this, I won't take time to actually go there, but there are different sub areas, and I've kind of included those links down here they're also here. And what I've done on this image is just kind of, I learned my little drawing tool. This is a new tool that I've just started playing with, where you can actually sort of indicate on an image what it is that you want the student to see. Now, let me see if I can get that back. What happened here? That kind of froze up here. I don't know why that did that. Okay, so moving on, here we go. Okay, so, and then the very last thing I just literally added at 4 o'clock today is I like, you know, the thing that's missing is my slides. I talk about my slides, but I didn't show any pictures of it. So I went and grabbed some slides. You might notice that I'm a bit of an image junkie. I love pictures, and I think pictures tell a story. So what I have in front of you is just a couple of quick screenshots of a couple of slideshows that really show the images in my presentations. So what I need to do though is some of these images I have to check for fair use. I'm going to admit that I'm learning about FERPA and fair use. And so some of my images I may have to get rid of because I need to check all those to make sure that they are indeed ones that I can use in my class. So that is something that is an ongoing improvement. It's just cleaning up some of that. But I love the fact that the images tell the story. Okay, so moving into standard 3, we have, this one is about connection and collaboration. And Allison, you had asked me, and I appreciate your feedback. You said, you know, this was all about the discussion boards. And I thought about it, I'm like, you know, you're absolutely right. I need to kind of sort of add a little bit more to this. So a couple of things that we do, we start with in the collaboration piece with a really cool sort of initial discussion board, which is called Meet Your Classmates. And in that, I have a little, what was I going to say? This is basically a copy of what we give the students to fill out. Questions like, why are you taking this class? What's your career goal, etc. What's really interesting about this course is that this is a required prerequisite course for our nursing program. And like any of the prerequisites, students are free to take their growth and development anywhere, but the majority of them do take it through the college. And we have a fair amount of students in the growth and development classes that'll never be in our nursing program. But there's a fair number of students who will meet each other again in the nursing program. So this idea of community is really interesting because while they're meeting each other online, they may see each other again in another class and or even in the nursing program. So that's kind of interesting. I did go ahead and include as another artifact here a sample from one of my students. I emailed her last night and said, hey, do you mind if I use your discussion board? And she was thrilled. And so this is just an example of one of the ones that kind of shows how a student would use this. It, you know, basically talks about what her career goals are and, you know, some things about herself. And then this discussion board was also a little bit of developmental theory, so you could see how a student would go ahead and do that. And at the bottom of this, the response was from her classmate. Again, I blurred out the names just for, you know, protection of them, their identities. But this kind of just shows the student response of saying, it's so awesome you've applied the nursing program, and kind of helps develop that sense of community. And then the regular weekly discussion boards, again, there's a component where when they post, they have 2 phases. The first one is the initial. The second phase is where they have to reply to each other. So in the replies, this is where you see some really interesting stuff, because the students, when they post, they have to kind of provide examples. So many times the examples are personal, and they talk about their story, and they talk about, you know, why did I choose this topic? And so if I give you an example, sometimes that kind of helps. That's my next artifact. And what I loved about this particular one is that it kind of shows, it's loading a little slow here. This is a student who chose dropping out as the topic, but when she talked about this topic, if you read through this, it basically shows us how she really was thinking about how she was thinking about dropping out. And because she was a pregnant teenage mom. And then the 2 students who replied to her also had that same experience of being teenage moms and how hard it was to stay in school. So I found this to be I didn't expect it, but I found it to be a wonderful way that the students were showing me they understood the content, while at the same time connecting with each other with this commonality of, hey, we were all teenage moms and we were all struggling with how do we keep our education going. as young mothers. And so when I asked each of these three ladies if I could share their posts, they were thrilled. They said, we would love to have other people be inspired by us, and to be able to understand that with hard work you can meet your educational goals even though you're a young mom. So I feel like my class was, it kind of choked me up a little bit how emotional I got of thinking of how these young ladies overcame their barriers. And then the last part of this standard is to really talk a little bit about, there's a piece of this that talks about the community. So in the community, students are fulfilling that through a middle-aged adult interview, where they'll go out and they actually talk to a middle-aged adult. And this is just an example of the questions that they have to ask, things like what's your role in relationship, what's your work. And what's nice about this is it provides a sense of community, but it also gives the students an opportunity to interview an adult and to talk about what that they found out and interpret that. So it sort of sends the student out in a sort of a real life lab situation. Okay, moving on to standard 4. This one here, if it will load, a little slow right now. Okay, it's moving on here. Standard 4, I believe, is about communication. So I'll go ahead and start talking while it's loading. So with communication, I really feel like this is one of the most important aspects of what I do as an instructor is keeping my students engaged and really talking to them and connecting with them. I don't know why my internet is acting up here all of a sudden. Let me see if I shut down additional things here. Try this again. Let me try reloading. Are you able to see, are you still on standard 3 with me? I think we're okay. I'm not sure why I'm stuck. Okay. Oh, we're back. Yeah, I don't know. My internet did something interesting. Can y'all see me? Okay, let's see, exit full screen. All right, let's see if we can.
We can see you, but the audio isn't the best.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I got that back, but now I lost you guys. So let's see here. Can you hear me now? Yeah, it says my internet is unstable. I don't know what happened to my internet all of a sudden. I have not had a problem all day. Can you see me now? Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just not seeing you guys right now. Let's see if maybe if I open it up here. Oh, there you are. Okay, excellent. I don't know why I see so much of me though. There we go. Okay, I think you guys are back. Okay, we're back on standard 4. A little break here. Of course, you have all these technical problems when everything worked great all day. That's pretty typical, isn't it? Whenever you're in front of an audience, that's when everything breaks down. I've had that experience. Okay, so on standard 4, we're looking at communication. And what I'm noticing with communication, like I started to say, is that I really feel that that's one of my major roles as a faculty member, is to really keep students in my loop, really help them feel like what it is that what I'm doing, they understand what their role is in all of this. They know that they can contact me, that they really feel like they're connected. What I have found in this is I don't know why I keep losing you guys. I keep moving you over. Let me try stacking you this way. Maybe that'll help. Anyway, yeah, I'm not sure. Let me try this. There we all are. Oh, got you back. Okay, so, and you're all stacked finally. That took a little bit, but it worked. Okay, so what I started to say is that for me, communication is a little bit about that, and a little bit about just having, oops, you lost you again. I'll just move you over here. How's that? So what to me is giving students guidelines for communication, making sure that they have access to their email, making sure they're reading their announcements. I do love to send announcements out. Sometimes I wonder if I send too many, but I really feel like keeping the students sort of on an ongoing basis is a big part of what I do. So I have, as part of what I consider my communication strategy, is start with posting information, having a frequently asked questions discussion board where they can ask questions, where I can post answers. I have an announcement feature in Blackboard where I can email the announcement, as well as just post the information so that they can go back to it. And then the email, I really do a lot of personal one-on-one emails. I went through my email, I found out that I've actually contacted every single student, or they've contacted me on a single occasion. That intro, that student loves to email me. I think I have about 30 emails from her. So different students that, like to reach out and connect, and others you kind of have to try to find them. But I think that's an important part of what we do. We also have a notification system that I can use through my site for students that are high risk. So what I've done here in my artifacts for Standard 4 is I've kind of just gone through those. This is my section related to communication and collaboration. I have a sample announcements for you guys to take a look at when you're reviewing my portfolio. This is just a single one. I also provide feedback in my comments on each of the assignments. So this artifact here just kind of gives you that. And then finally, a little sample to some of my emails that I send to my high risk. I try not to overwhelm them with too much information, but I'll just do one like, hello, I see you haven't turned your terms in for this week, and it's due by tonight. You might want to submit at least what you have done. And I've gotten just at the bottom of this artifact are just some of the responses. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you reaching out. I'm new at this. So I'm finding that my attrition rate is a little bit lower than I expected and lower than other sections, because I feel like I really try to give the students the benefit of the doubt, reach out and try to give them that feedback of, let me help you, okay? All right, so Standard 5, kind of moving along. I'm watching my time here with my difficulties and my connection problems. I'm slowing down here. So, yeah, I'm not sure why this is scrolling through so slowly. Yeah, normally my computer's pretty zippy, so I'm not sure why it doesn't like me moving around. Maybe it's everybody on the conference at once. Okay, so Standard 5, I'm going to flip to Standard 5 on I have a dual screen here, so I'm going to flip to Standard 5 on that one to see if that helps. We're just kind of spinning here. Okay, so this one is about ethics, and this is where we get into the FERPA and the netiquette and safety and technology use. So the first thing is the role modeling, and like I said, now that I've learned a little bit more about safe use and finding safe images, that's been my goal is just to continue to switch out any images that don't belong there. Certainly citing my sources and really doing that on my part. The second part is really helping students avoid plagiarism by giving them examples. With Turnitin, really giving them feedback through Turnitin. About what is a high match and what does it mean and how to avoid it. Resources, I've got several in my standards or in my artifacts here, where I've got the syllabus section where they talk about safe technology and academic honesty. FERPA resources for them to look at through our Saddleback College website. We've got lots of good stuff here, and even our board policy. And I even went down to the U.S. Department of Education and kind of read through there. So to really have a better idea of what is involved with A, safe use, and B, with this FERPA of not sharing things without the student's permission. So that's all there.
Michelle, you seem to have lost your screen share at some point. And so I've been following along by having a window open, but it occurs to me that you probably want the screen share in your recording.
Okay, so, all right, because I guess maybe when I lost connection, so my screen share, we're back to this. And are you guys seeing it again?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I think when my computer glitched up, it must have stopped sharing. So is everybody seeing it again? I'm hoping everybody's seeing it. Okay. So yeah, just share with me what you're seeing and what you're not seeing, because sometimes it's hard for me to know. And then finally with this, just some information about netiquette and what it means to, to communicate online, especially with students that are new at this. And so, yeah, for some reason my computer is acting up and it's quite slow. Oh, there we go. There's the netiquette resources. Originally I just had this sort of text document, which I liked, but I didn't love. And then recently I came across this little YouTube, and I find that to be really quite helpful, and it's colorful and it's easy to follow. Okay, so hopefully, is everybody with me? If you nod, yes, if you see. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so we're moving into Standard 6. And on standard 6, this is the accessibility, and I learned a ton about accessibility in the accessibility class. And so my reflection really has to do with accessibility. To me is a couple of things. One is to prepare my course in such a way that students with disabilities can use the features, you know, between the captioning and making sure that I'm using alt tags, making sure that I've done my formatting correctly. So that's one piece of it. And then the other piece is just the whole idea of utilizing our DSPS services on campus. I've had a pretty good experience with having students doing with accommodated testing and using DSPS for that. So really figuring out how does DSPS factor into an online class. And I actually had 2 students contact me this semester that needed accommodated testing. So I called DSPS and asked them, you know, okay, what are some of the things that your online teachers are encountering as how they manage these things and or issues. And they were very, very helpful. They actually provide a really nice set of, and these are all in my artifacts here. For the interest of time, I won't get into all of these, but they're basically their faculty manual, which is a wonderful 55-page manual that goes through just about everything you'd ever want to know about that. They have a captioned videos, or I'm sorry, they have, what was I going to say, accommodated testing policies and procedures for how they do it, etc. So I also, in my artifacts, included a sample of a video that I use in my class. These are the ones that are captioned, and I did really go to make an effort to find videos that weren't just captioned by YouTube, but also had proper punctuation and spelling so that when students are watching these, that they are properly captioned. So this is just a quick example. This is the actual video. This is just a screenshot. And then finally, what I did include in my artifacts too is a copy of my syllabus. And I just identified right before this that this link is broken. So I will fix that right after we're done so that when you're doing this, you can actually see my syllabus. I don't know where it goes right now, but I just figured that I just found that one. Okay, so moving into standard 7, this one here, oh yeah, it just popped right up like it was supposed to. Finally, it's working. This one here has to do with assessments. And this one is a very interesting component because we in the nursing program do a lot of assessing. Our students have to take a board exam, and we're under a lot of scrutiny with our regulatory agencies about how we assess. So this is an area that I'm very familiar with of you know, basically grading student written work as well as administering quizzes and exams. And so in this forum, you know, basically using these type of assignments to measure student learning, I learned along the way, for example, in my discussion boards, I learned along the way that sometimes with assignments, students are just kind of cutting and pasting. And what I was really looking for is more application. So I've changed a few of my assignments, my discussion boards, and my key topics so that it's more about, give me an example of this. Tell me what you know about this, or, you know, teach an adolescent, or things that are not just, you know, reiterating what's in the book. So what I've done over here in my artifacts is, once again, I've given you my syllabus selections related to objectives, my methods of evaluation, my grading policies, etc. I've given you an example of my grading rubrics. I use grading rubrics so that the students will know how they get their points. This is an example of one of my assignments, just to kind of show you can see how I administer those. I do quizzes, so that I gave an example of some of my quiz instructions. This here is a little bit of some of the feedback, both positive and mixed. And in my discussion board grading rubric, this is just another rubric that I use to determine how many points the students would get. My discussion boards are worth 15 points. So the initial phase 1, which is your output, is 11 points, and the phase 2 is 4. I've been playing with points for this, but I decided to make my phase 1 a little heavier because it does require quite a bit of work. And my biggest thing with my discussion boards is I'm expecting my students to actually put in a sample, and you saw that in the one with the dropping out of school, where they actually have to insert a video. So it requires them to do a little bit of work. I also give you my student learning outcomes. These are ones that we measure all the online classes together look at student learning outcomes as one, and we can take a look at different sections, but we all use the same student learning outcomes in that particular, for all online. And we have, actually right now, we're not really doing any in-seat for my class, so the two sections that my coworker teaches and myself all kind of collate our data, and we report all of that through the nursing faculty. We have an end of semester meeting, which is actually coming up next week, and we get together and we discuss all of the outcomes, and then we come up with strategy for improvement, and we discuss, you know, what other learning outcomes might we want to measure for next year. And then the last thing that we do, and this is a unified approach through all of our nursing classes, and these questions, again, are ones that we use throughout the program, is something called class climate. And what this is students at the very end of the class in an anonymous forum can answer the questions about, did the class help me develop my skills? I would recommend this class. Were the objectives defined? Did it meet learning outcomes, et cetera, et cetera. So this whole class climate then is collated, and we report on that in our program review as well. Okay, standard 8. I think we're catching up here with time. Analysis. Again, I find that the two standard 7 and 8 kind of flow into each other, because analysis is really about, once you have the data, what do you do with it? So in standard 8, I really look at, well, what is going well? What isn't going well? What can I fix? What needs to be changed for next time? And certainly, because this is my first time teaching, there is quite a bit that I'm learning and fixing and changing, and based on what I'm learning through at one, also through what I'm getting back from the students. For student progress, which is the first part of this, how I monitor student progress is basically through the Grade Center, where I can see their grades, see when they accessed last, what they were doing, looking at their activity reports, looking at the item analysis to see how they did on the tests, and then just anecdotal feedback. And or if I keep getting the same question over and over again, then that tells me, okay, there's something wrong with the way I'm explaining this. Either it's not clear or I didn't cover that. So I'm really watching trends in that. And so my modifications, obviously before is the best. Sometimes if it's necessary, I'll actually make changes right during the class if there's something that just clearly isn't working. And or, you know, I'm preparing for my summer class, I'm using all of the data from this semester to kind of make sure that I'm doing it properly for summer. So I do the course revisions as needed throughout that process. And then I just told a little story here about how I changed my key topics assignments based on what I feel was the students were kind of just sort of cutting and pasting what my colleague used to call feed and burp style teaching to something that's more meaningful, more dynamic, where the students actually had to think about the concepts and really give me more examples. So I changed what I did. And what I tried to do here is kind of show a little bit of the things that I talked about in my reflection. This is a copy of my Grade Center, and it kind of shows the last access, the totals, what needs to be graded, and then the scores. What I like about the grade book in Blackboard is I can move things around so that I can look at any group of assessments. So like here's a group of quizzes that I can look at all kind of in a collection. The other thing that Blackboard provides lots and lots of different reports. So this was one that I thought was kind of interesting. This is the student activity report. I kind of got rid of the columns with names just to protect the students, but this shows like a little bit about how many times they participated. So this is meaningful as well. The item analysis I like to use a lot. This really tells me a lot about how I'm doing as a faculty. How are my test questions? Are they too easy? Are they too difficult? What's the average score? And this also helps me identify whether or not I have to double key or change any questions. And then if there's a lot of students missing, I have to really look at why. And then finally for this section, I'm looking at how do I revise? So this is an example in my little story that I told on my reflection, where I found that the students were just sort of cutting and pasting the definitions. This kind of shows the evolution of these assignments. That this was my first one where I had literally, I think it was about 85 terms, and it was all just cut and paste. And then by the end, what I did was I figured out that there's too many terms and not enough information and not enough direction. So I shaved it down to 30 terms, and I gave them more direction in terms of what is it that I wanted them to do. So this just kind of shows how I used what I got from my students to help guide me in making those revisions. And even like just referring them back to what chapter it's in and how to submit the assignment, just cleaning up my instructions. Okay, moving on to standard 9. This one here is continuing ed. This is fairly straightforward. This is how do I educate myself? Well, as a nurse, I'm required to do so many hours in nursing. So I've given you guys a little bit of a snapshot of some of the classes that I've taken as a nurse. This is just a recent report that I did because I have to renew my license. And so this kind of shows you the classes I've been taking for that. Obviously, this past year has been very heavy in terms of learning online. So this is just a quick screenshot of some of my @ONE classes. And then something that's new and kind of exciting is we have a big group of faculty now that are teaching online. So this part of the reflection talks a little bit about how which classes are in our nursing program are online. We are doing more and more with that. And we actually had a meeting yesterday where we sat down, I think there were 6 of us total, and we sat down and shared what's working for us, what isn't working for us, are there things that we can do to sort of unify. For example, one of my colleagues uses a raise your hand for her question and answer. I call it frequently asked questions. Someone else calls it Coffee House. So I said, if they're all nursing courses, could we come up with a unified name for that? Could we just decide, do we all want to call it raise your hand? So that when students take our classes, they have they have something that's familiar, that's usable, especially for questions. So that was really fun to be able to sit down as a faculty group to do that. And this was our first meeting, and I'm sure we'll be meeting again. It was great because we shared sort of our best practices, our successes, our failures with each other as well. And finally, last standard, almost done here, is looking at course design. And again, just the question that Allison asked me to explain a little better was, how do students navigate my class? And I went, good question. How do they navigate my class? So I went back and I was like, okay, if I'm a student, what would I do? Well, first I would look at the course intro, look at those tools. So what I've included in my artifact is a little picture of my intro. And then I send announcements and posts. I try to send a sort of a welcome to this module announcement each week, along with update announcements on an ongoing basis with additional information, tips for success, clarification when I get a lot of questions. So I use the announcements pretty extensively. And then in the modules, I've really tried to sort of organize them so that they're very intuitive, that you click in, you see the folder, you click in, you see another folder. So I try to really sort of have a flow to all of that. So what I've done in my artifacts is I've just sort of given you guys a little bit of screenshots of what it is that I am showing the students. So this is the first thing they see. I kind of like the colors. I like rainbow order to kind of just guide them through. So these are each of the modules, and then when they jump into each module, they're going to see content folders, and these are pretty standardized. So they get PowerPoints, the assignments with instructions, and then once they click into individual content folders, they would get the actual individual assignment files and or PowerPoint. So there would be like a 3-click into the assignments. The other nice thing about Blackboard, and I guess I'll be learning Canvas, is they have breadcrumbs to kind of help you work your way back. So what I've done here is I've sort of labeled this artifact for you to show you where those breadcrumbs are. And this is actually something new. I just learned how to do this week as I'm preparing for this. So there's lots of new learning going on. What's nice about Blackboard and Canvas is they always have their navigation screen on the side. So if they get too lost, they can just jump back over here to get back through. So that's navigation of the course. And this is just an example of some of the announcements that I do to help them with the navigation. This is the welcome one that tells them a little bit about how to get started and where to go first. This next one, these are just kind of a couple more module announcements, saying now that's available and this is what's due, and, sort of how to, what's important for that particular week. And one thing I really like is there's a course link right in the announcement that they can go directly to the modules. That's another way that they can navigate easily. And finally, just to kind of summarize here in the standard, the last thing is just the course design piece. And again, I use a lot of the different tools available. I'm using the Grade Center, Turnitin, the testing features, discussion boards, and really just trying to utilize as much of the LMS as I can to just sort of really make to utilize all of the tools to kind of make my class sort of flow as well as I can. I know that I have a lot to learn, and I'm excited about adding new technology, VoiceThread and Confer and other things. So as I get more experienced and sort of more comfortable in the online format, I'm sure that my class will continue to sort of grow. And so, you know, I'm looking at really seeing this as just as a beginning point in my career as an online educator, and I'm really excited about what I have to come. So I think it's time for questions. I know I kind of whipped through the end a little faster because I wanted to leave time at the end. Please let me know if there's anything that I didn't cover or that I went too quickly through. Is everybody still there?
Yeah.
Okay, and so who's gonna start with the questions?
So am I up?
Yeah, do it.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, Michelle, you know, with all the technical difficulties and everything, I thought you did a really nice job.
Well,
Really.
thank you.
And there's nothing like technology that doesn't work when you want it to work. And it really probably what you learned today is really going to help you in your class as well. So there's always a good part to having technical difficulties.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I know there was a few things that I wanted to ask you and make comments on. And the one thing that let me see if I can find it here. I just had it here. I hate that. It was the one where you had the assignment where you had the students do an interview.
Oh, yes.
You know, the different ways. I don't even know what I did with it, but I know it's here somewhere. I thought that was, standard 3. I thought that was really a really nice change other than just a discussion. So showing that you were thinking of different ways of trying to get the students to learn a certain type of material or a certain content or concept or whatever it was. I thought the interview, having them go do an interview is really a good idea. And I have to share with you, I did something similar to that in my personal community health class. I make them go to a tattoo parlor and ask questions about, and then share it in the discussion about, you know, the infectious diseases and everything else that goes with it. So you know, like you, I guess it must be that little bit of creative thing of us nurses in there. Looking for different ways to make content relevant, but also interesting, which can be a challenge at times. And I think all of us here would agree with that. And so I thought you did a really good job with that one. And I wanted to just make a suggestion, if I may, is what I saw. And I really love your colors and your use of colors. I would make a suggestion is always have to be careful with color for visually impaired students. And so I would keep that in the back of your mind. And when you do that, because I love color too. I mean, I would just color everything, but then I forget about how I got to come back down to realizing who's taking my classes and what would be accessible for you know, some of my students. But you know, overall, I thought you really did a great job, and I love, and I know who you're talking. You're talking about Jody, about the raise your hand.
Yeah.
And you know, is a one means of communicating and interaction with people is raising your hand. That either can be a teacher to student communication or a student to student, and that type of thing. So I thought that was a really good idea. And how lucky you guys are at Saddleback to have this faculty online learning group that you guys are doing and starting to build. How cool is that? And gosh, you're lucky to have that. Truly, you are. So those are just a few things that I did, and I'll put more in my evaluation. But good job knowing with the difficulties you had today. Thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Thank you, Christy.
Hey, Michelle, great job.
Hi, Allison.
Hi. Um, I agree. One thing that stood out to me was the same thing that Christy commented on. It's really pretty incredible that you have a community of colleagues that you discuss your assessment data with, and also, you know, your experiences with online teaching. I think that's so valuable, and I'm really, you're really fortunate to have that kind of a community. I think one of the neatest things for me to see in your portfolio was the evolution of your key topics assignment. And it was nice to hear you talk a little bit about that in your presentation as well. You know, it's so neat, just those little things that click, how you can get someone away from just regurgitating the information back to you to actually making them think about it in a different way and give it to you in a slightly different way. So I thought that was really neat to see. I also agree with Christy that you have some neat ways of trying to get your students to connect personally with the content of the course. Like, I loved in your welcome letter when you said, you know, some of you who may have children have experienced these developmental phases, and I thought that was great. There was some technical difficulties during your explanation of Standard 7. I couldn't hear you, so I wasn't sure if you mentioned something about opportunities that you give students for self-assessment. So I don't think I saw that when I went through the portfolio, so that might be something to think about.
Okay. Now, when you say opportunities for self-assessment, I guess when I'm looking at feedback for the, you know, going through this process of sort of learning about what it is that they did well and not well, I guess I'm kind of stuck on when we talk about self-assessment, how that is really implemented, other than how I've explained it.
I guess you know, what it means to me is that the students have some opportunity to reflect on their own learning.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, we do that in a clinical setting with more of a journaling, and that isn't something I have in my class right now.
That would be great to see.
Yeah, so that interesting. Okay, that's a good. I do feel like, and I could speak to this a little bit more when, you know, and I could add this is that I feel through the discussion board process they are doing self-assessment, because when they are providing an example of how they learned about this or how this applies to their lives, to me that's in the self-assessment process where they're really having to think about not just how, you know, what do I know about this, but what do I understand about this and how am I living this? And I am seeing that, but it's a little bit more subtle format than, you know, just saying I learned this, but just kind of saying, now that I've read this in the textbook, what does that mean? And I'll give you a great example of, I had a student who, it was about expertise and about how the brain works in middle age. And the student said, well, my father's a landscaper, and when he can go in a yard and he can just see a yard and know how to design it. And that's his example of how a middle-aged adult implements that particular cognitive concept. And so that self-assessment process is happening as he is telling his story, because he is really having to think about, well, what does this actually mean, and how do I translate that to my own life and my own understanding. So I do believe that's there, but I don't know if the student is aware that they are self-assessing during that process. So journaling is definitely the most straightforward way to do it, and I could certainly add maybe a component to that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, one way of doing that might be just to have them, you know, in the last discussion board, I kind of take that back, because I didn't talk about that last one, that there is my final discussion board. I'll just kind of show you my schedule here. I think that's standard 5. In that discussion board, what they do is what did I learn most? What kind of stuck out in my mind as what was most important to in terms of my learning. And I think that's probably where I would get that from. I'm trying to see where my discussion board sample, let's see here, here's my schedule. So that's one thing I didn't show, but this very last discussion board number 4 talks a little bit about applying what I learned in NWIT 61, what would they say, and how would they kind of pull together everything that they know, and how would they sort of translate that to what it would mean to be a nurse and have to use this information. So I see that as part of the self-assessment process, and I could certainly speak to that in Outlook Standard.
Great. Thanks, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
So we could just kind of continue that conversation just a little bit. I have a couple of questions for you, but I feel the need to add to assessment that you have kind of pinpointed something really interesting, which is you said that there's a subtle form of self-assessment that takes place. And whenever I'm working with an instructor and they're asking, maybe questioning how they could add more self-assessment in their course, I tell them the exact same thing. Anytime they're interacting in a discussion forum and they can see someone else's work, then there's an opportunity for self-assessment, because seeing someone else's work is a benchmark for us. Are we doing better than them, or did we not do as well as they did? And so the difference is in self-assessment is that you want it to be self-assessment of learning. So you're really asking the student, not a self-assessment of the application of the ideas, but rather a self-assessment of themselves as learners. What do they need to do to learn better or to engage more with the content? So you want kind of like a mix or a marriage of both of them, where they're assessing how much of the content they know, but then also assessing themselves as learners to bring them to the pinnacle of learning. And it's hard. Not every student is ready to tested as a learner, right? So some people are really open and engaged in learning, and others it's going to be more difficult. But you might think about ways where you can make their learning more explicit instead of subtle. One of the things that I do is I ask them in our midterm, looking back over the discussions we've done so far, which student has had the most impact on you in the discussion forums and why? And then what could you do to model your own work after their work so that you can have an impact as well? And so that's just a little tiny way that you can help them make it explicit, right? But you definitely have a ton of meat in your course that is doing that subtle self-assessment. I'm just always so impressed when I see the nursing courses, because that it's so applicable to what they're going to be doing in their career, that it's so authentic, that there's the opportunity for learning is so much higher because of that authenticity. My questions really have to do with your time at @ONE. You moved through the @ONE program pretty quickly, so that shows your dedication. Not that people that go through slowly are less dedicated, you just had a goal in mind. And I'm really interested to find out what was the experience that was most helpful to you as you went through your @ONE courses.
Well, I would say, in fact, it's funny that you say that, because the woman that I'm teaching this class with, she got her online certification in, 2011. And she said, I'm thinking about taking @ONE because I hear you guys all talking about these classes, and there's so much that, I feel like I could benefit. And she said, which ones would you recommend? And I said, well, the two classes that jump in my mind are the accessibility class, because I think that there is a lot to learn. And Christy, your comment about color, certainly so because I'm dealing with nursing students, I don't have too many visually impaired students, technically, very often. So thinking about, how is my presentation for that audience? Just definitely learning more about, accessibility was, I think, one of my more challenging, more difficult classes, but definitely stuff that I really needed to know that I maybe didn't even know I needed to know. And same thing with social media. I was a little irritated by some of the assignments, like, why do I have to learn this? Why am I really ever going to make a word cloud? But once I got a chance to learn how to do that, it's like, okay, this is a cool little tool, and yeah, someday I may want to do this. I wasn't really set up very well for video. I was using my cell phone, so it prompted me to go out and go to Fry's and buy my Logitech camera, and so it really sort of pushed me into to really presenting my stuff in a new way. So I would say those two are kind of really jumping out as two classes that I found particularly helpful.
Okay, that's really interesting. So we just redid the accessibility course, and I think it's even better. And
Oh, wow, good.
yeah, we just migrated it from Moodle to Canvas, and so we did an upgrade on it. And the community course is the next one to be moved. So both of those courses will be getting some attention, right?
Excellent.
The next question, the follow-up question is, now that you're done, what can we do to support you going forward? And what types of workshops would you like to see, or additional courses? What can we do to continue to support you as an online teacher?
I really love that, you know, you guys hit on something really interesting, which is I'm super excited to collaborate just about sort of best practices and what works and what doesn't work. And so I really love the idea of having like more community workshopy type things about letting folks share what they're doing, and then have somebody else kind of jump in, kind of like what you did, Christy, of saying, yeah, that would work. And here's another thing that I do that's similar that might work for you, is that piece where we can kind of sort of build on what each other is doing. Because sometimes when you've invested a lot of time and energy into sort of going down a direction, it's nice to learn about new things, but it's even better to learn about how to use what you're already doing a little better, if that makes any sense. You know, of saying, well, you know, if you're using that tool, have you thought about this or this part of it? Or let's say you're using CC Comfort, and when it freezes up, this is what I do to get it to unfreeze. Or when they can't see my video, this is how to quickly fix it when I'm in front of an audience and you don't have time to futz. So those are the kinds of opportunities that I think would be great, is sort of the how to fix it, how to problem solve it, how to make it better, what are you using? So like even having like little mini workshops of, hey, are you using this tool? Well, come on board and we'll all kind of talk about what works, what doesn't work, what makes this easy, hard. This is an alternative that is a little less glitchy that you may want to consider. So those kind of workshops, like sort of practical ones, and even maybe ones that are sort of a hands-on the approach, where we can like actually share our screens with each other and kind of whip through our slides and say, oh yeah, this, you know, this works, this doesn't work, kind of thing.
I love that idea of kind of work group workshops. So it's definitely something that I wrote down notes for. So I love that idea. Well, now it's your turn to sit back and relax, and to let the review committee do what it is they do. Allison and Christy have about a week to do a write-up to me. What they'll do is send a list of what they think are required revisions and a list of what they think are recommended revisions. And then it goes to a final committee at one, and we send out to you required revisions and requested revisions. And so the whole process takes a couple of weeks. And this is a particularly busy period of time for everyone. So we try to hold to that 2 weeks, but give us a little patience if it takes a little bit longer than that because of everyone's busy final schedule. So you should be looking for that feedback from me in a couple of weeks. And until then, you get to breathe a little sigh of relief and pat yourself on the back for a job well done. You know, also a trait of nursing faculty, when things were causing some technical difficulties, you did not lose your cool. And so if the nurses could teach other people that, I would really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that. That is one thing 20 years has given me is I have done it all, dealt with it all, walked in and had zero slides. I'm like, all right, you know, no instructor, those kinds of things happen. So you got to learn how to roll with it. So I appreciate that. And I hope it all didn't, you know, not being able to see my screens impact your ability to understand what I'm trying to explain. And hopefully because now you all will go into my ePortfolio and be able to go through it at a little bit better pace than me clipping through it so quick. Okay.
And actually, I was listening to you and really engaged with what you were saying. And all of a sudden I realized, oh, wait a second, I can't see what she's talking about.
Well, that's good.
You know, what you were saying was compelling enough that I didn't really notice at first. And then I wanted to jump in, but you moved right to the next one. So I was trying to wait for a little pause. You know, one little tiny piece of advice is that I have had numerous times where I was not sharing what I thought I was sharing, or especially if you have two monitors up, where I had stopped screen sharing for a reason and someone asked me a question and I forgot that I wasn't screen sharing anymore and continued talking. It's always good to pause every once in a while, just like build in a little pause. And then that way, if someone does have a question, they can jump in. and then checking that chat. That's one of the pieces of Zoom that I think is most important, is really having the chat window up and monitoring it as you move along. But otherwise, you did terrific. So presenting remotely is difficult. And you also had two great panelists, Allison and Christy. They just always do a beautiful job. So
Thanks, Anae.
yeah. All right, everyone have a good evening, and we'll be sending you some feedback in within a couple of weeks, Michelle.
Okay, just a quick question for you, Lene, just in terms of the process. So I'll get the feedback, and then I read somewhere that I have till August 31st to get that done. And
I don't know where you read that.
okay, so that's not true. How does that work then?
Well, okay, so this is a really, really interesting piece. Usually we negotiate it. It's an individual thing. You don't have a lot of revisions. So this is not going to be difficult for you. Some people have more revisions. So once you get the feedback and you read it, then you usually propose to me how long you think it's going to take you, because you know your schedule. I don't. But @ONE is currently changing hands. Our grant was owned by, well, not owned, it was, MSJC was our fiduciary body. And the grant is now moving to Foothill so that it will have a closer tie with the Online Education Initiative. So all of our contracts in on June 30th. And then a new team will be hired. And that team will then continue on with whatever @ONE is doing. So we have a little weird situation that's going to happen. I have applied to be part of the new team, and but it will be a competitive process. And so if someone else is going to hold this position, there'll have to be some kind of handoff. And so we really can't tell you a date like August 31st or whatever. It will really depend upon that handoff and how the next group or the next team wants to handle it.
Now, let me ask you this. If the revisions are minor and I get them in before June 30th, would that be the ideal scenario?
Ideal.
Okay. So, because I'm just looking at, I do have a couple of trips planned in June, but I'm on summer. So certainly in the weeks that I'm back, I can put my all into getting it done in even a day or two once I get the feedback. As long as I'm in town, I'll be happy to do what I can. Just kind of wrap it all up, especially, so if I do the feedback or I do the revisions based on the feedback, and what happens from there? Like if it's not what you guys are looking for, do I get that opportunity to make further revisions, or how does that work?
Usually, so I've never had that happen.
Okay, good.
Usually when you meet with me and talk about your revisions, people have a pretty clear sense. And so, it's usually things like accessibility. There's always some accessibility issues. And like maybe the point about self-assessment. Anna Sterling, she's the director. People always forget to talk about the acceptable use policy. And so she looks over that really, really carefully. Almost everyone has to redo their acceptable use after Anna has looked at it. So it's things like that, right?
Gotcha. Because I was wondering, and again, I'm sorry for all the questions, but like, for example, if there's something about accessible use that she's looking for, do we get to see a sample of what it is that she likes? Because sometimes it's a little bit.
She wants you to know your campus policy. And a lot of people conflate fair use with acceptable use. And they're completely different. So she just wants to make sure that you know your campus policy, because it's actually the policy that backs up if you were to have a student who violated etiquette or who was using your course, for instance, to to sell something to someone else in the class. That's the policy that's going to allow you to document the student.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. It's because I can start looking into those things. Just a few clues is helpful. So that way, I'm not entirely sure that what I include in my portfolio addresses that. Now, should I go ahead and try to update my portfolio or wait for your feedback?
You should probably wait for feedback so that people can look at your portfolio and there's some agreement about what we're looking at. And then for acceptable use, for instance, in our course, when I talk about standard 5, give, I think, 3 or 4 examples of campus acceptable use policies. So look at there as well.
Okay, sounds good. I do know there's one link that's broken, so I intended to go and fix that. That's the link to my syllabus. It took me.
Oh, I thought you meant in the course, and I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised.
No, just in my e-portfolio. I just, if you guys are reviewing it, I want to make sure that when you
Oh, yeah.
go
Feel
to
free.
my syllabus, you're not getting to my list of slides, which is what it comes to. So,
Yeah. You can do routine maintenance.
okay, excellent. Thank you for all your answers.
Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Michelle, don't forget to wait for the download of your recording and then to archive that either through YouTube or 3C Media and give us a link to the archive.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Okay,
Bye. Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.